So you got to see Rick Pitino and the Johnnies up close, and then you saw that bubble game with Xavier and Marquette going down to the wire. Your impressions on what you saw first from the Johnnies and then from Xavier?
Well, the Johnnies, I mean, if you look at the scores throughout the day, as far as like the top ranked teams, I mean, they had the most dominant performance, I think, of any of the top rated teams that are playing in their conference tournaments right now. Um, Pretty much took a very early double digit lead, and I think one time within the early parts of the second half, it got to within 8 as the lowest, and that was the closest that Butler ever got. But it was an absolutely suffocating defensive performance once again by St. John's. That's what they do. Um, they are just relentless on the glass, on the offensive glass, defensively on the perimeter, inside. They're just create a lot of turnovers. I mean, they're just extraordinarily disruptive. They really play with a high intensity. Um, their shooting is hot and cold. Obviously, cold more often than hot, but they can still hit the threes. Scott hit a couple of threes. RJ Lewis hit a couple of threes. But really, what they specialize in is really speeding up the game and taking the other team off their rhythm. And they did it to Butler early on. I mean, Butler was not going to have a chance to win this game today. St. John's got off to a little bit of a sluggish start, and I spoke to some of the players after the game. Some of the interviews are actually on YouTube, on our YouTube channel now, on College Basketball Coast to Coast. It is kind of a weird game to have a noon tip-off on a Thursday. That's not something that they're normally used to. Maybe games in November if they're playing in the preseason tournament of some sort. But this particular time of year is not a typical tip-off time. But it is something that is possible. Most likely not for them. They'll probably get a later game in the tournament, but it does happen in the NCAA tournament where you'd have like a Thursday noon tip-off or 1 p.m. tip-off. So they did kind of come off a little sluggish for the first 4 or 5 minutes, but once they kind of got warmed up and picked up, it was lights out for Butler. They just didn't have a chance. They suffocated them the whole day and just completely, outmanned them. And moving on to Friday night semifinal matchup against a very good, hungry, and veteran Marquette team.
So let's segue right into that Marquette Xavier game. Xavier controlled this for a good portion of the game. First off, when did you begin to sense the vibe changing? And when did you begin to sense that, Marquette could actually win this?
Well, yeah. So let's go back to the first half where it was just obviously a pretty quick double-digit lead towards the end of the middle part of the first half, where Xavier started to extend the lead, and it was really, I mean, they were starting to chip away from it, and Xavier in the beginning of the second half extended the lead as well, kept it at double digits for a while. There was just a couple of stops that they made, between like the 16-minute mark and the fourth 12-minute timeout when they started to narrow that double-digit lead. It goes from 14 to 11, hit a three. They get a stop, they come back and get a two. Now it's 9 points. Xavier comes back, hits a three. Then Marquette comes back and hits another three. I mean, there was a lot of back and forth, a lot of spurts from both sides in this game. It was a very well-played game offensively in particular from both sides. Tremendous guard play from both teams, which Xavier is known for their guard play, obviously. But just Marquette just kind of at the end, I feel like had a little bit more gas than Xavier did, and just were able to create a lot more turnovers, and most importantly, did not have that many turnovers at all. In fact, I believe there was a stat, and I think Stevie Mitchell talked about it, or one of the reporters in the locker room afterwards brought up that they had no steals in the game, none. Xavier had no steals, and Stevie Mitchell was like, "Wow, I didn't even know that." But that's a pretty impressive stat, 0 steals. That just shows you that Marquette took care of the ball. and hit big shots down the stretch. Cam Jones, Stevie Mitchell, those guys. There's a lot of treads, that have been worn down on that team, but they're long in the tooth of a lot of experience, especially in Madison Square Garden. Um, they've had a lot of wins. These particular people, these individuals on this team, um, they're a force to be reckoned with. I don't expect them to bow down to St. John's, provided they just lost to them by, the skin of their teeth. Was it a 1-point St. John's victory? I think Ejiofor had a tip in at the end of the buzzer, close to the buzzer at least, to win that game. To win the second, St. John's has won both, so it's very hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. But Marquette is, again, they have a lot of experience playing in Madison Square Garden, and a lot of wins that they've had in recent years. These Marquette players as individuals have had that. Cam Jones has been around forever. Stevie Mitchell's been around forever. Again, a lot of experience. This is going to be a very, very good competitive game. I expect it to go down to the wire, similar to what Xavier did.